Cheers, guys. Epix911, welcome to the Elitist Geek VR news for Tuesday, September 27th, 2016. Let's jump right into VR, guys. I'm going to start with just a simple request. I've been jonesing to play some VR racing games. I don't want to do this on a mouse, keyboard, gamepad. I want to do it on a good PC racing wheel. So if anyone in the comments section can recommend me the best bang for the buck Windows 10 compatible racing wheel, that would be absolutely awesome. As long as it functions well and decent bang for the buck value, I will absolutely consider it. Right on. Thanks, guys. And into the news. So, hopefully, the final nail in the Sony demo disc saga coffin for this story. Not because I hate telling it, but because it ticks me off about region locking and localization every single time it's brought up. Now, Sony has stated again today, so second day in a row, that it is in fact the language localization that is to blame for the only 8 games if you're in Europe or Australia, New Zealand, Asia, right? Now, the question that they didn't answer was, can those regions still download the balance of games, which is 10 games, for free? They haven't come up with a concrete answer for that. They're entertaining it. Hopefully we'll find out. That's probably the only thing I'm going to talk about on this topic still, if word comes that that is available. But what bothers me about this so much is, look, Sony's done away with region locking effectively with the PS3, the PS4. Why we still have this archaic language localization, right? If you are in New Zealand or Australia or the UK, as far as I'm concerned, that should be one contiguous language zone, from left to right in sequence. You've got Australia, New Zealand, US, Canada, and then on the far right, up high, the UK. So, why isn't that all just one language region? It would just make life so much easier. If the game is programmed with the native language of English, that should be just one zone. But anyways, that's just my take on it. You may or may not agree. It just seems like it's been so archaic for so long, tying the destiny of the English-speaking countries to the rest of the countries in that region. When the game is natively English, just doesn't make any sense to me. But hey. All right, next up, the final specs for the PlayStation VR show that it's the heaviest unit, but as the author points out, probably the most comfortable. Now, the author in question, Road to VR article, states that because of the way the Rift hangs, and if you look at the Rift picture, it doesn't have that top strap, doesn't clamp to your face, it kind of rests around the crown where there's no muscles. End result, he says, there's nothing pressing on your face like with the Rift and the Vive, where you do have a lot of muscles, right? Meaning, according to him, that you could keep this thing on much longer than the Rift or the Vive. So at least from an ergonomical point of view, looks like it's going to be pretty comfortable. And, with that said, 660 grams versus 555 for the Vive and 470 for the Rift. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see because I've tried 3 different units and I like them all for different reasons, but then there's things I dislike about them all. So I can't wait to try on the Sony, share that with you guys, and let you know what my thoughts are on that. All right. If it seems like Europeans are getting picked on, definitely not the intent. It just seems to be where the news articles are coming from. But we get word today from Amazon UK that PlayStation VR pre-orders are likely not going to be completed for the UK in their entirety until December 13th, or rather December 12th, which is almost a full 2 months post October 13th release date. So that begs a couple of questions. The first question is Amazon UK the only Amazon that's just being honest preemptively about the supply chain issue? Or, right, are they in fact the only region or the only Amazon impacted? Is it a local supply chain issue? So To me, the latter doesn't seem as likely as the first, but I guess we'll find out if we don't hear. And you know what? If that is the case, and it is all Amazon's, hats off to Amazon UK for at least being honest preemptively, because I can tell you, if they say it now and the other Amazons don't chime in until the release date and then tell their customers they might be waiting until December 12th, I think people are going to flip their absolute lid, and I don't blame them. So if it is a global thing, they better get word out there stat and let people know. Next news piece is a really interesting article. It's from Upload VR, and it's written based on thoughts of a virtual reality game dev. And he goes by the name of Joe Raddick. He works for Eerie Bear Games, and he's working on Light Repair Team number 4. That's the title that he's on the team for. And he brings up some really interesting points about virtual reality, game development cycle time. Some of the stuff I've touched on already, the fact that there aren't a lot of tools available for people programming in VR, that a lot of these devs, whether indie or AAA, are creating the tools as they go, basically winging them, right? And building up those libraries. So that first game is always going to take longer. Subsequent games should be delivered a bit faster, which is exciting when you have stuff like raw data, which was so polished upon release. What could those guys do with a bit more time with that tool set for a next release, right? Well, the dev brings up some other interesting points, like there is on average about 6 months development time behind any of those release titles that we played on either the Rift or the Vive. It kind of makes sense. Most of those games aren't really involved titles. They range from a couple of hours to maybe 8 to 10 at most, right? But the sense that you get with the AAA is that they're still kind of waiting to see. And he says as much. He goes, look, a lot of the AAA publishers, they're not going to invest until there's more HMDs out there. Well, we know there's not going to be more HMDs out there until there's better games out. So it's that old catch-22, right? Like you're looking for a job, must have experience. Well, how do you get experience if they don't give you an opportunity, right? Same thing on the gaming industry. But the thing is, what you rely on then is those risk takers, those people who are willing to gamble, the AAA companies, and gamble on virtual reality. Maybe create that title that everybody wants to play that becomes a compelling reason to own a virtual reality unit. That's the gamble one of these companies is going to take and be successful on. I can feel it in my gut. It's a coming. It's not here yet. And that'll get that process really going to pique people's interests. Maybe it's Fallout. Maybe it's one of these other titles, that we heard about that's getting converted. We just got to wait and see, like so much else. I say it all the time. We're kind of in a holding pattern. But Sony's launch is going to tell us a lot. So will the holiday season. So a really good article. He says some other things. I agree with some of that, absolutely, like the whole tool example. Once a company has those tools in place, AAA publishers included, subsequent titles can come out much quicker. So really good points. Next up, really exciting news. This concerning Occipital. Now, Occipital is a company that is releasing a VR dev kit for, get this, a mobile position tracking capable HMD for iOS, which is just makes so much sense. At first, I kind of wondered, why are they only targeting iOS? Obviously, the next thought was, of course, nobody else is catering to iOS. So these guys literally have a VR monopoly on the Apple platform. So, kudos to them for seeing that. I've got some questions on their technology. For example, how it works, you take your Apple phone, they have a sensor component. So the SDK, the whole development kit consists of the SDK, which is the software to program the stuff with, the HMD, and a sensor, which they call the depth sensor structure core. All of this is inside-out tracking. And I talked about that a couple of weeks ago, whereas the Vive and Rift are outside-in. It's the lighthouses, the camera communicating with your HMD and your controllers. With this device, it's camera out, right? So you film the surrounding environment with your iOS. the software converts that to boundaries that you adhere to in virtual reality. As you approach a real world object, like the chaperone system, the boundaries glow and light up, indicating you're about to bang into something, right? Now, what's really puzzling to me about that solution is understanding, when you understand how the tracking systems work, how does this synchronize itself? And they don't really get into that. We won't know until this device is out and it's field tested and in people's hands and they're reporting on it. But unless it can quickly resync itself, and I'm not so sure that an inside-out tracking system can do it that quickly. You got to imagine this has been an issue for them that they've overcome. But if they haven't, that could be really jarring if you're kicked out of a game literally because you no longer have any positional tracking and the game takes too long to resync itself. So hopefully, like the Vive and the Rift, it's something that just takes a matter of seconds, you know, like milliseconds to a second, and you're back off and running. But again, we're going to wait till that's out in people's hands and they start doing some reviews on the unit. But it's $500 for the VR dev kit, and again, includes everything, the HMD, the SDK, and the sensor core, all for iOS. Next up, I've kind of made jokes about this in the past, and that's the whole exercising in virtual reality. There's times I like to do it, if I'm playing Vanishing Realms, etc. Swordmaster, oh my God. So Chris Bauer, one of the viewers of the channel, he did a really good video I mentioned about Audio Shield. Just super fast and skilled in that game. Anyways, he told me about Swordmaster. I tried that game, and holy hell, what a workout. It was about 12 minutes of just brutal workout. Highly recommended if you want to get your cardio on with your VR, right? If you don't want to mix the two, you want to keep it games, don't blame you. But if you want to work out and do some sword fighting, check Swordmaster out. Now, a guy by the name of Tim Donaghy, and he's who the Upload VR article is about, posted on Reddit, and he goes by the handle of Leper Messiah. Love the Metallica nod, but neither here nor there. He posted to Reddit that he was going to do 50 days of VR cardio. And that consisted of, get this, 10 minutes in labs with longbow, 20 minutes thrill of the fight, 20 minutes hollow point, and then rounding off his hour, 10 minutes in hollow ball. He burned roughly 800 to 900 calories 5 days a week, right? 5 times a week he was doing this, and he lost 6 kilos, roughly 14 pounds over the course of those 50 days, which is nice, good, healthy weight loss, not too rapid, not too slow, just right. So good for him. Again, your results, mine may vary. I usually don't like to mix the two, but I can tell you, if you are interested, like that Swordmaster game, for example, you do 20, 30 minutes of that a day, oh yeah, it would definitely kick your cardio into high gear. All right, guys, that's it. Links for everything below, as well as timelines as per usual. Cheers as always, and definitely catch you on the VR flip side.